Good morning. Uh, I'm just drinking a little coffee and getting my day started. And I've been having some thoughts lately about how um, Facebook and YouTube are restricting content. And a lot of the people that I know are running up against that kind of problem. And I've had some experiences with it in the past in terms of, trying to boost posts on Facebook and then encountering a problem where they say you're trying to sell guns and then they, take down the post and then you appeal, but it's like appealing to a brick wall because of, you know, there's no infrastructure to actually engage in this appeal. And, friends like the folks over at Practically Tactical are getting hit on their videos, and the terms of service is vague and hard to appeal. And I've been having a lot of thoughts about it. Some of this I've written down, and some more of it I'm going to sort of ramble as I go. But I thought it would be important to get that out there. So I'm still drinking my coffee. So bear with me if I'm not as articulate as I would ordinarily be, but I have the time to do this now, and it's kind of weighing heavily on my mind. Um, Let me read what I've written down so far, and some of you may have seen me post this on the Filter Facebook page, but I'm going to read that, and then I'm going to discuss what's on my mind a little bit. So here we go. So, as someone who owes their current position to the opportunity to participate on the YouTube platform, and as someone who could potentially be subject to their, various vague restrictions and however that progresses in the future, I've been thinking about the relationship that we have with YouTube and Facebook, especially as private companies whose resources we enjoy rightfully at their discretion. I'm not saying that YouTube should be subject to any kind of requirement to host or monetize videos that they don't want to host or monetize. And I believe, in a libertarian way, that government intervention into dictating the policies of YouTube and Facebook would constitute an overreach, which is just as dangerously consequential as the short-sighted policy such an intervention would be attempting to correct. But I do wish that these companies had the wisdom and the fortitude and vision to appreciate that if they're part of a small cartel of private venues which account for what has become a significant portion of the public sphere, then they become responsible for the public sphere in a way. And the only truly responsible, hubris-free, and unintended consequence-free position to take is one of strict content neutrality. Nobody knows for certain what information we should and shouldn't share, and what conversations we should and should not have, even if it's controversial, dangerous, offensive, or even factually incorrect. You never know what you'll learn from being wrong, what dialogue you'll create through accidental offense, what kinds of solutions, innovations, and skills might result from the open sharing of information. Now, with that being said, I believe to some degree that these companies think that they're doing what's right, that they acknowledge to some degree that they've come into this position of power, and they think that that comes with a responsibility, and they think that that responsibility is one of doing what's right. So when they but I think they've got their math slightly wrong on that. Now, journalism, for example, took some amount of time to struggle through its infancy and then develop a code of journalistic ethics, right? Um, Newspapers and print were and still are, private enterprises. But at some point, they acknowledged that even as a private enterprise, they constitute the objective window into the world for a lot of people. And that despite having a number of private obligations, they are providing a valuable cultural service. And I think, and over the infancy of journalism, it developed a code of ethics of objectivity. And I believe that social media probably needs to do the same kind of thing, where they have become so integral to how we interact with each other that the whack-a-mole sharing of content curation and being strict about what kind of content you can put up there is going to have a substantially negative effect over a period of time. And I think that they're going to need to figure out what their code of neutrality is for this. Otherwise, I believe that they risk damaging the culture. And I'm going to relate that back to journalism again. And I think what we've seen relatively recently in our lifetimes is this kind of blurry deterioration of journalistic objectivity, where now it's all kind of tainted with maybe not all of it, but enough of it is tainted with the perspective of the corporate culture of whatever media organization that is, such that it kind of damages our relationship to the truth. And it's going to be important for companies like Facebook and YouTube to come to the same kinds of conclusions that journalism did, where they commit to an objectivity and a detached neutrality that allows for the kind of flourishing, even if it's a little chaotic and messy, that a public discourse requires. Yeah, I think that's just about all I have to say on it. I'll probably come back to this at some point and address it a little more in depth. Maybe get somebody who's got a little more knowledge on the topic to discuss it with me and flesh some of this out, because it's kind of hard to monologue about it. But I believe that once a company like this occupies an essential monopoly on public discourse, the only responsible thing to do is to be neutral, because these things kind of, YouTube was revolutionary because it was a free for all in a way. Traditional media had a lot of restrictions, and individuals didn't have access to it. Outside of like cable public access or what have you, and the ability to essentially self-publish with complete freedom was a revolutionary disruption in a tremendous way. And I don't think it's appropriate to backtrack on that. And I understand that there are issues of, liability and legality. And, I'm not suggesting that um, YouTube surrenders itself to the necessarily the worst and most, disgusting chaos of the internet. But I do think that they should adopt a, a much more long-term vision of what's responsible, not just, you know, playing the whack-a-mole of mitigating what they believe to be the most immediate harm given any, immediately emergent social issue. They should take a much longer view of what their responsibility is in terms of um, being a cornerstone of public interaction in the public sphere. Think and then come back to the discussion in a little while. Thanks.